Hello everybody, John Control back here again with another video, and today I bring you another Flash review. Yes, it's Tuesday night, so let's get right down to it. Today I give you my review for The Flash episode 18 titled All-Star Team Up. Now, of course, based off the title and the teaser trailer we got, today's team up is, of course, with Barry Allen's Flash and Ray Palmer's The Atom. And if you want to know more about what's happened tonight on The Flash, please go check it out because this review may contain spoilers. That being said, let's get right down into this review. First off, the villain of this specific episode isn't really as important as, previous Flash villains. So the majority of what really got to me in this episode has to be the shifting of both camps of characters on the show, which is Team 1, Team Flash, if you will, Star Labs, and Team 2, or Camp 2, if you will, which is Eddie and Iris's relationship. Now, as we all know, of course, everything inevitably is going to shift for Team Flash to take on the Reverse Flash, and of course, Eddie to go on his own little journey, if you will, to become, I guess, maybe one of the Reverse Flashes, maybe Professor Zoom, who the heck knows. But nonetheless, majority of this episode was towards the shifting of both teams. Now, on top of that, we also have Felicity and Ray coming in. They were mostly, I think the majority as to why they brought them into this episode was mostly due to the fact of the CW wanting to do more crossovers, and plus, the Atom hasn't really been featured on The Flash as of late, so now that the Atom is officially on the roster, or the Arrowverse, if you will, you might as well just, have them at least give them one crossover with The Flash. But nonetheless, I didn't really see any real major problems with the crossover. I do feel that Felicity, I think she gets more jokey when she comes to this show. I don't know about anybody else, but for me personally, when I watch both Arrow and The Flash, and I get to see Emily's performance as Felicity on both shows, you can tell that she definitely lightens up and is more jokey on The Flash. And it's more of a in-your-face kind of jokey, which is really odd. And I know maybe younger audiences like it, but for me, it's just off-putting. It's not my cup of coffee, if you will, and, as a Flash pun, if you will. Nonetheless, it was interesting to see them come over to The Flash, and I also wasn't really big on the Arrow opening. I know The Flash is now working with Eddie and Joe with their detective work, or police work, if you will, but I don't know, I'm not really big on The Flash opening up every episode the same way that Arrow does, where it's like, it's, once again, another, hero versus the villain, catching up with the bad guys, usually with the car chase, if you will. It always opens up the same way. I'm just sick of it. It's kind of annoying. It's a CW trait that they continue to do. I mean, there's more episodes that open up with characters running away from the heroes, and of course, them chasing them. It's kind of old at this point in time. Maybe people like it, and I will admit that it was fun to see Barry and Joe and Eddie work together or what have you. But for me personally, I thought it was a little boring and just unnecessary. It's been done too many times. But nonetheless, today's villain is, of course, you've probably seen her before, and it's, of course, the actress who played Beth in The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is, of course, a show I don't really review anymore for self-explanatory reasons that I've already told on my channel. But I think she was decent as this week's villain. I mean, granted, she didn't really have that much screen time, and her real battle was more or less towards Felicity. Like, Felicity and Emily's character, Bree, have more or less a fight than the Flash does with her. So that's why I wasn't really into this week's villain, which is why I also don't consider it to be a major conflict with this episode. The villain is pretty much whatever in this episode. It's not really like Mark Hamill's Trickster, or Harrison Wells' Reverse Flash, or, and name all the others. She wasn't just that important to me, or at least to the actual episode and what happens. I mean, granted, her power was pretty cool. Well, technically, she didn't have a power. She was she created and controlled deadly robotic bees, which she used as tools for revenge for her employees or bosses, if you will, who screwed her over in the past with her, I guess, job description or what have you. So now she's created these bees to kill them. Now that's an interesting plot point, and it's also a very creative way to kill people, but for me personally, I wasn't really big on it, and, you know, I felt like she could have been taken out pretty easily anyways. And plus, it's the Flash. I mean, you would think that with Barry being so fast as he is now, where he's pretty much at the point in time where he can run on walls, run on water, practically, you know, move through solid objects and whatnot with his super speed force, but you know, I just feel like he could have just grabbed the jar and, like, really fast and just, like, capture each and single little bee. I just feel like it could have been that simple, especially seeing as how they're not even real bees, they're robotic bees. So I would have felt that, you know, just showing them would have been easier, but of course they just, I guess, they wanted a more creative kind of villain. They didn't really want to go for the extravagant, big muscle kind of villain. I understand it. I just wasn't really big on it. Nonetheless, on top of that, the crossover was pretty decent. Adam was, I think, hysterical. I think his Ray's best moments has to be with Cisco. Their moments together as fanboys were just funny. On top of that, I also really enjoy the conversations that Barry has with Felicity, where Felicity basically is trying to get through Barry's head and understand what's really happening. And of course, there's obviously, as I stated in the beginning of this review, that there's a shift going on within the Flash universe, which is, of course, Harrison Wells is the Reverse Flash. Why is he the person who killed Barry's mother? And how is he going to stop him once and for all? There's all these big questions that I hope we get answered by the end of the season, which is very, very soon. But, that's what's pretty much going on there. And also the big question is whether or not he should bring Cisco and Caitlin in, because regardless of how he personally feels towards them and how they may personally feel towards Barry, you never know. I mean, they could be working under the, you know, secret codes of Reverse Flash. Harrison Wells is very, you know, scammy, so of course, you know, it's inevitable that regardless of how they feel about it, something could happen where it cannot work towards Barry's favors, which was very interesting plot device that they used for this episode. It was only inevitable where Team Flash would obviously turn against Harrison Wells, and it's just inevitable where Harrison Wells officially reveals that he is the Reverse Flash, and Barry and Reverse Flash go to an all-out war with each other, hopefully through time and space, if you will. So it's just interesting to wait and see how that's going to happen, but it's good to see the beginnings of the shift between Team Flash. On top of that, of course, that has a lot of humongous effect with Eddie and Iris's relationship, where Iris essentially puts it out towards Eddie, is that if he's not honest with everything that's happening with him, then they're pretty much going to be over. Which pretty much means to me that Eddie's obviously going to keep Barry's secret, which will obviously terminate the relationship between him and Iris, which resulting in him becoming one of the bad guys of the series. Once again, I really don't know the full extent of what they have planned for Eddie Thawne. I mean, will he become Professor Zoom? Will he become one of the many fucking Reverse Flashes? Who the hell knows, but it's just only inevitable until we understand the full extent of why he's starting to, he's going to go rogue, if you will, and start killing people based off those various trailers we got of Eddie killing cops and what have you. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes into place. Nonetheless, I think this episode was pretty decent. It was a very, very okay episode. It was, I can't really sit here and say that it was extravagant or in your face amazing or straight up bad. It was just a decent, good episode. It wasn't amazing. It's kind of like the various episodes that are just, you sit back, relax, and enjoy a good episode of The Flash. That's pretty much what this episode was. It wasn't like, you know, a Reverse Flash kind of scenario episode where you get understanding between what's happening with the timelines and what have you. It's just a crossover episode where you can sit back and relax and enjoy what the heck goes on within these conflicting storylines. Nonetheless, I have to give this episode a good 7 out of 10. It's not my favorite episode so far. I personally prefer Tricksters, which was an amazing episode. But nonetheless, the Flash kills it all the time, so it's just decent to see an episode nonetheless. And of course, on top of that, I also wanted to mention something that was very interesting to me, which is Cisco remembering what happened to him in the previous timeline. For those of you who don't know, spoilers, but in the episode Out of Time, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me correct, before Barry uses the Speed Force to go back in time, basically Cisco gets killed by Harrison Wells after he discovers the fact that Harrison Wells is the Reverse Flash. And somehow Cisco has been remembering the frames, if you will, of what happened to him in the prior timeline. How is that possible? I really don't know. I would think that by Barry going back in time, that specific timeline does not happen. Or if it did happen, it's just, going its own course that we will never eventually see ever again. So, I don't know, timeline, time travel always messes up everything. There's always ripple effects, so maybe somehow, because of going back in time and messing up with the timeline that Barry did during that episode, maybe Cisco remembers what happened to him in a prior timeline. But for me personally, it didn't really make that much sense. I mean, granted, they had to do it just so they would have Cisco be on Barry's team, where Barry obviously, eventually at the end of the episode, spoilers, reveals that Harrison Wells and Reverse Flash are the same person to Cisco and Caitlin. So it makes sense for that kind of plot device, but overall, with the whole great scheme of things, if you will, it just didn't really make that much sense to me. But overall, today's episode was pretty decent. Wasn't really big on the villain, I wasn't big on the opening, and I also wasn't really big on Felicity's jokes, but today's episode was pretty good nonetheless. I did enjoy Cisco and Ray's fanboy-gasms together. I enjoyed, Ray, the Atom, if you will, helping out with Flash's missions. I also enjoyed the specific moments that Barry had with Felicity and with Cisco and Caitlin, talking about the whole Reverse Flash Harrison Wells thing. And I also actually enjoyed the Eddie and Iris stuff. Usually I'm not really big on the Eddie Iris stuff, but this episode was pretty good. I definitely believe that they're getting better at writing the relationship status for Eddie and Iris. But nonetheless, today's episode is a solid 7 out of 10 for me. Let me know in the comment section below what you personally thought about tonight's episode. Did you like the villain? Did you hate the villain? Would you like to see a Flash Walking Dead crossover? I know that's stupid, but, a guy can dream, can't he? I just want to see the Flash kick zombie ass. That would be really fucking cool. But that will never happen. Let me know what you personally think, how Caitlin and Cisco are going to react towards Harrison Wells possibly being the Reverse Flash. And also, let me know what you personally think about possibly Caitlin Snow becoming Killer Frost. I mean, obviously, she's not a villain, but there's been hints, and there's also been alleged talk about Caitlin Snow possibly in the future becoming Killer Frost. I don't know if that's never really going to happen, but it's pretty interesting. Let me know what you personally thought about that also in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. And this has been John 12.